Welcome to Be Real with Sarah, where the B may sting and the real never dies.
Hey y'all, welcome to another episode on Be Real with Sarah, where the bee may sting and the real never dies. This is going to be a very special episode, and I can already feel the emotions arising. I can't really tell you that I have a script for this, or I even have talking points, but I'm going to really just flow from my heart. This episode, really my whole brand that I not consciously has been built off of my last name, but never really thought about the origination of essentially the why or what, or just was doing so. Like when a lot of times we get these ideas, we don't know why we're doing it, or we don't find out until later. And so this episode is dedicated to my father. We are about 21 years past when God called him home, when he got, I think they say, from labor to reward. And I'm dedicating this episode to him. So you're looking at an adult version of someone that still deals with the void of what a then 12-year-old girl did not understand what her journey was going to look like. And this is to my dad. I, after relocating here to Texas, I didn't realize, the why. And I'm still searching for that, as I've shared with you all. It's like I'm still searching on the why, but it's like even more that I've gotten here, I'm feeling even more closer to him. Just some reason. I don't know why, right? And I have to believe that everything that I'm doing makes him proud. I just have to believe. I pride myself in believing that. So when my producers brought this up, to talk about honoring him, right? And talking about leaders and how you're born into this, and how I trust they know what they're doing, right? And so when they brought this up, I looked at them really crazy, because I was like, we not gonna have no soap opera on this show. But I mean, it's almost like, how could I not, honor him? I was like, Dad, I got to give you at least one episode, right, on the podcast, because so much of what I do, you did in your journey. One thing I always say that is, if I could have just had you in my adult life as I was navigating entrepreneurship, as I am navigating entrepreneurship, I think that you would have been able to tell me a lot, right? Like, I think that, or I know, or to the girl or to the woman that didn't make great choices with men, having that strong male figure, that father, those are I can't say, I hate that I missed that. I didn't have that. And, there are a lot of people that, don't have a great relationship with their dad. They don't have a great relationship, with their mom. But I know for a fact that should you have still been alive, we would be cool. Two peas in a pod, bicker and batter, like all the things, but we would have been two peas in a pod for sure. And so I think it's just so important. I think God is just so crazy. It's like, if this is me talking to you, right, I would be like, it's crazy that I am doing things that you did years ago, being an entrepreneur, being a business owner. My father was a military veteran. Okay. The real deal. I am the daughter of a bishop, a minister, a pastor, who own their own church. And I am also the child of parents that were not understood in ministry. I am a PK. That's not something I shy away from. And that's who I am. That's the DNA of church, the DNA of the faith and all the things in ministry. I've seen it all. I have a disdain as it relates to ministry and families and this and that, because being a daughter, right? You see all the things. You see how your parents, navigate. You see the highs and lows. I saw my father struggle. I saw my parents struggle. I saw when it seemed as though, the ministry was first and family was second. I saw it, and it's a real thing. I saw the desire and the love for God and His work almost, it was just so far at the top of the mind, where not that the family wasn't important. It was just a matter of like, God, I'm chasing after you. I'm doing you. I'm doing what you've called me to do. And we followed, anytime you preached every week throughout the week, baby, I slept in the van, while you ministered. I was there when you preached a sermon and they didn't like it and they kicked us out. I was there, right? A real thing. I was there when you were at that time ahead of your time, when you wasn't accepted in Mobile, when God placed people in your life where you had to travel and do ministry because you wasn't accepted in what you were preaching, what you were doing. And our family had to move and stuff. I saw that, so when I look at my life and what has happened to me in business and what I've done, it's like I'm a young mirror of just in a different industry, so to speak. But I still speak, obviously. I wouldn't call it preaching, Dad, but I still speak. I still host. I still moderate. Maybe God has called me to preaching. I don't know. That's not really what I'm trying to do, but we'll see. Okay. But there's just so much in me that I know came from you. So it's one thing to say, you're a leader, but I can own it and say I am because of what was done before me, right? And for those that say, I don't have a relationship with my parents, or my relationship's not the best with my dad or my mom, I can't speak to your personal circumstance. Whereas a lot of people can't speak to not having an active dad, or a dad that is alive, or was alive, like in my case, right? What I will say is that you only get one parent, you only get one dad. I only have one biological dad. I only have one biological mom. And the blessing that God gave us was that, was God blessed me with my mom, And, truthfully, if I was to really think about it, if I had a few moments with Dad, I'd be like, well, Dad, you left us on the highway. We headed back to Mobile and you just dipped. And, my mom, who she depended on you, you led us, had to go back home without you. And for context, this was obviously around the February time, it's 2005. And we were heading to his brother's funeral. And if I remember, he passed on the 1st of February. His funeral was on the 5th. And the whole time my dad was there, he was not feeling well. We found out later, just through my mom found out later through remembering conversations, that my dad could not do long road trips. And so every time he did a long road trip, he got sick. Wasn't feeling good. Something happened. It could be diarrhea, it could be anything. He just would get sick. And so you can imagine driving from Mobile, Alabama to whatever part of Texas for this funeral. He wasn't doing good. So it's cold, super cold around that time. And what we thought was a cold ended up, he was so, when I replay what it was, what I remember was that he was very distant, in his last days. He was cold. He was sick. He wasn't feeling well. He couldn't lay down. We had to sit him up. We was at my aunt's house at the time, and she had a rocking chair and she had to sit him up, or he had to sleep sitting up. And we had him cold medicine, and it just wasn't, it was like nothing wasn't really doing it for him. And as time went on, to me, from what I remember, he was quiet. He wasn't, he talked and, all the things. But it wasn't him. It wasn't him. And we learned later really what it was. And so for context, my dad does hold, or has in the past when he was alive, he held the gift of the prophetic. And let's just say he knew what was up, right? And if you ever heard the saying where people know when it's their last, they be knowing when it's time. They just won't tell you. And so we are confident to know that he knew. And you're like, well, why would he do it? It's so many thoughts happen, right? Like, why would, well, we'll get there. And so I found this out later. We go to my his brother's wake, excuse me. Because remember, I'm 12 years old. I don't know nothing, okay? I'm seeing it, but when you have older parents that are, with my dad doing a few tours to Vietnam, active in, he had sleep apnea. He was sickly. He was sickly, but yet young. He was 56 at the time, but he was sickly. Just, the things that he had went through, stepped on a landmine. For all those that know how military veterans are, stepping on a landmine, you literally can blow up to pieces. And he was pronounced dead when he was younger, but hey, we believe around faith around here. So his mom was like, no, my son is not dead. And he ended up not being dead. So he was a walking testimony of God's sustainability, his goodness, and he wasn't done with him yet. And so we go to the funeral, we have the funeral, right? And we leave out on a Monday. This is February the 7th, 2005. I remember it's super cold because we had to leave early because we got a long way to get back to Mobile. And he didn't make it. He just kept, every time that cold weather hit him, he would just pass out. He would pass out. So we make stops, and we had some friends. My parents had some friends at a certain part of Texas. We stopped by there, and he saw them, and we get up, we go back, and this is where I always remember this story. So every time I see this type of gas station, I always think about it. Just is a significant in my part of this story is he just kept on passing over. Just his head was bobbing, and he wanted to stop and get something to eat. So we stopped at a pilot gas station, and this pilot gas station had an Arby's. And so he went in, got his Arby's sandwich, he got a Snicker bar, he got a chocolate milk. And he got back to the car. Mama, she stayed. She was get some gas because she knew he wasn't feeling well, but he wanted to get something to eat. My dad's diet wasn't the best, but we don't care about that. So he comes in, he takes a sip of his, chocolate milk, and she drives a little bit, and he keeps bobbing his head, like he just keeps bobbing. And she called him big boy, and she says, "Well, go to sleep, big boy." And I'm in the back seat, and he does go to sleep. He knocks his head over, and that's it. And so we shake him, and I had been shaking him anyway. Like, Dad, wake up. I'm young, right? So I'm like, what you doing? And so this time she just kind of looks over like something ain't right, because he legit turns his head over, and I'm shaking him. And I can see that she's don't, what's going on. So I'm shaking him. This time he doesn't get up. And so we're in this land of the unfamiliar. We're in Minden, Louisiana. Keep in mind, Louisiana is not far from Texas. We have to stop at this truck stop, this random stop, call 911. At the time, Mom had a cell phone. Mom didn't know what to do. I'm like, Mom, we got to call somebody. She's not even thinking. Thank God. We're in this thing together. We call, and then the rest is history. She calls his family, and then the rest is history. And so from there, not understanding faith, not understanding, all the aspects of it, that's when we went down this journey with, he never woke up. And each day he just kept deteriorating. And God showed us so much goodness in that, because what hospital do you know will take you in, give you a random hospital room and tell you to sleep over the night? Well, one, they more than likely knew what was going on, and they knew we were off the road. Like, God is so mindful of us for you to be in that place of that you don't know anybody, and what doctor just gives you a random hospital room, small town, And it says, we'll wash your clothes because you're traveling with dirty clothes. You're traveling, you have a young child, you know, and it's like God still showed his kindness in it. And so, February the 9th, 2005, around 2:50, we get a call and we knew what it was. And we walked down the ICU and that's it. And, to this day, I can remember just my mom. We talk about this here and there about just where she was. It was almost like she forgot she had a child because all she saw was like, why did you leave me? What is this? And I couldn't believe it. And I'll never forget, even at 12 years old, the arrangements to move you was on me. Mom didn't know where to take. She just was out of it. And I said, well, mama, such and such at 12, And that was the start of, we had to make calls. And I remember calling his best friend at 12 years old. And I'm making these calls. Help my mom couldn't do nothing. She couldn't think. And so when you die in a place like that and you're not at home, you have to call, you have to make those arrangements, you have to be picked up. And I always think about how my mom felt in that moment, about how she drove with a child from Louisiana to Mobile with his stuff, to walk in an area, in a place where she didn't know what was about to happen. And it's like everyone knew that was once the word got out, before we even got there, we just had people just waiting on us. And so, as I remember, 21 years ago to now, is just how God has kept us, and how the spirit of you, the spirit of who you are, who you were to us, I believe that even through all of that the favor that was on your life always has carried us through. Always has carried us through. And it's an honor to me to carry the last name, right? To build a business. I don't be understanding how long we gonna do it, okay? But I always think about how you just never gave up. And my goal, my job on this earth is to continue to honor and carry out the legacy. If it's not another child, if it's got to be me, it's got to be me, And so I have done my best, and I always think about, I wonder, is Dad proud? Like, I wonder what he would do, or I wonder what he's thinking. And this is really just my heart, just really sharing on my podcast that, and I've always have told God, or we've always kind of felt like that we were shorted because we just needed a little bit more time. We wanted a little bit more time. Maybe that's selfish, right? Because, we're human. But God knows it all, and it doesn't feel good. And so for those that are have lost a parent that you had a great relationship with, people say it gets better. It depends on the person. It impacts you in different ways, because at the end of the day, you're still here, they're not here. And regardless, we can say that he's with the Father, he's there, he's that, God needed him. And we can say all these cliche things, but at the end of the day, selfishly, right? They were ours. We feel like they were ours, and I don't stray away from how I feel. I feel like he was my daddy. I needed more time with them, and these are okay feelings to have, but I always believe that he's around, that he's here. I think honestly, he's to my right over here just watching me. I think he's in the room. I think he's in this space. And I just believe and trust that the favor over his life, the gift over his life, the prayers that he has prayed is keeping us, is keeping me. So if you understand, if you are going through where you like, man, that's 21 years, like, you don't ever forget them. You will be surprised at how many of your feelings, emotions, and how you operate literally exemplify who they are, because their spirit still is alive and they're just not physically here. And so this podcast is one of those sentimental ones. But if I don't do anything else, as I continue to grow, and like I told you guys, my job is to heal and heal areas of my heart. And I wanted to make sure that I just dedicated this as we celebrate and commemorate 21 years of his life, all the things that he's done, the ministry that he's done, the books that he's written, just the entrepreneurship that he's just been able to take on, the accomplishments, the military accomplishments, all the things that he's done. And when God took him at 56 years old, I just believe that his memory and his legacy will continue to live on. And if I can do anything about it, I'm going to do that. And so I just dedicate this episode to my father, Melvin James Busby Jr. And I love you. So that is my heart that I share with you all. And what I always tell you guys, make sure that you be real, spread the honey, and just be you.